Good morning, everyone. This is an important conflict that's currently going on. And I don't think that most Americans understand the gravity, understand the pressure, understand what may result from this conflict, this war with Iran, with the likes of Israel. Now, there was this professor, he made three big predictions not too long ago. One, Trump would win. Two, that Trump will start a war with Iran. Three, the U.S. will lose that war. So two of his predictions already came true. And I know that sounds crazy until you realize lose doesn't always mean tanks rolling into D.C. It doesn't mean that aircrafts, jets will be dropping bombs over New York City, over California, over our major cities. Sometimes it looks like America will spend billions of dollars per week. We're going to burn through our missile stockpiles faster than factories can replace them, as we're doing because we gave so many and so much to Ukraine. This is not a Trump problem. That wasn't a Biden problem. This is an American government problem. And until we, the people, understand and become political mature, we are going to keep voting for people on their best interest and not the American people's best interest, because we keep saying we're winning while we are quietly moving Patriots from one part of the world to another like a desperate chess player. And we end up negotiating the exact outcome you swore that we'll never accept. That's not victory. That's an expensive surrender with better lighting. Again, instead of this rambling and ranting, I'll present Exhibit A.
One, that Trump would win. Two, that he would start a war with Iran. And three, that the U.S. would lose that war. It's quite a stunning prediction. Do you stand by it?
The reality is that right now, it's a war of attrition between the United States and Iran. And the Iranians have been preparing 20 years for this conflict. And now they have a pretty good strategy of how to weaken and ultimately destroy the American empire. So what the Iranians are doing is they're waging war against the entire global economy. And so they are striking the GCC countries. They're going after the critical energy infrastructure. They blocked off the Strait of Hormuz. And eventually, they will go after the water desalination plants, which is the lifeblood of these nations because they don't have fresh water supply. The Iranians are actually threatening the very existence of Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar. And why this is important is that the Gulf states are really the linchpin of the American economy. So what they do is they sell petrodollars and then they recycle the petrodollars back into the American economy through the investments in the stock market. And right now, we know that the entire American economy is propped up by AI investments in data centers. And a lot of that comes from the Gulf states. So if the Gulf states are no longer able to sell oil and they're no longer able to finance AI, this AI bubble in the United States, then this AI bubble will burst, and with it will burst as well the entire American economy, which is really a financial Ponzi scheme.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, sir, an Amazon data center was literally hit in the UAE. Now, we also wanted to talk to you about munitions. The United States is racing to accomplish Iran mission before munitions run out.
The United States military is not designed to fight a 21st century war. Remember, the military-industrial complex came to being after World War II, and it's designed to fight the Cold War. And the Cold War was really about muscle flexing, who was to first get the person on the moon. And so the entire American military strategy revolves around very sophisticated technology that costs a lot of money to build. And that's what the American air defense system is. And that's why we're seeing this asymmetry in this war, where you have these $1 million missiles trying to take out these $50,000 drones. And it's not sustainable in the long term. And so what we're seeing is really the puncturing of the aura of invincibility that sustained American hegemony for the past 20 years.
When you really think about what he's referring to, $20,000 a drone, $4 million for a missile. And this is not a sustainable war for America because we have loaned out, we've given out so many Patriot missiles, so many anti-aircraft missiles to Ukraine in their war against Russia. And now we're supporting Israel. Let's talk about the part that the Pentagon hates, the math. Now, I was going to wait until later into the broadcast, but I think it's relevant that I show you guys this now. Not that it's alarming. Is this a fact? Is this the truth? Here is the U.S. debt clock. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. I used to show this while giving my financial classes. But nevertheless, the U.S. national debt is $38 trillion and climbing, $39 trillion. Ladies and gentlemen, even America has a bubble. Now, if you guys are familiar with the term monetary sovereign, then you would think that America would never go under. But this is a more of a strategic war for Iran. Iran knows that they will lose the war when it comes to arms against arms. They know that. But they are attacking strategic military U.S. bases, as well as disrupting oil and natural gas in the region. They know exactly what they're doing. They're like, if we're not going to live a peaceful life, neither will none of you, the Israeli, the Americans, and anyone who helps. And probably attacking some of the UAE states as well as other Middle Eastern states to disrupt them as well. And quite frankly, I know you guys heard about the Israelis that was caught. Was it in Oman or Qatar? They were trying to plan a terrorist attack, and some of the evidence possibly that they were going to blame it on Iran, but they caught some Mossad agents in one of these Middle Eastern countries planning an actual terrorist attack, allegedly. See, Iran is throwing cheap mass at expensive precision. They have all these missiles they've been making and saving up and probably getting some from China and Russia for the past 20 years, preparing for this right here. And some people think, oh, it's military strategic, while others believe that this is a religious war that we're in. And this is not a metaphor. This is literally the battlefield economics, what we're referring to. Iran Shahed drones are reported around 20,000 per drone, while Patriot interceptors are reported around 4 million. That's the missile math. Problem analysts have been screaming about. So when you see a swarm of drones and missiles, you're not just watching combat, you're watching Iran try to bankrupt the air defense umbrella protecting, whether it be U.S. bases, Israel, and the Gulf states. And yes, this war is being described as a war of attrition by analysts watching the interceptor stocks, because Iran drones, $20,000. America anti-drone missiles, $4 million. And please don't believe that Iran is a poor state. It's a poor country. Absolutely not. Why do you think that all these Middle Eastern countries have all of this money? Their oil, their natural gas, liquefied natural gas. And guess where Iran sits strategically? On the Strait of Hormuz. We're going to get into it. This needs to be break down because you have Mossad agents in one of the Gulf states, one of the Middle Eastern countries, planning an attack, a terrorist attack. The current phase of the war has been framed publicly around Operation Epic Fury, and reporting says major elements were planned for months. So in those regards, it has me to believe that we were already going to attack Iran. It's just a matter of when. Now, granted, you do make preemptive plans, or you future date just in case you have to go to war. But the information around it just has me to believe that, yeah, we were going anyway. So immediately the fight becomes a salvo competition. Iran launches missiles and drones. The U.S. partners intercept, but both sides race to see who runs out first. And quite frankly, right now, ladies and gentlemen, we don't know who's going to run out first. So that was exhibit A of someone predicting what was going to happen and what is happening. And then when we talk about the war on attrition, the amount of money that the U.S. is forking out and spending for Israel defense, as well as some of the Gulf states. Let me reinforce that theory.
You know, wars tend to bring out phonies, and people are like, oh, I was on SEAL Team 27 and I know what's going, and they don't know anything. But your analysis has been.
I'm just a nerd.
Yeah, well, I have been very impressed by your grasp of what's happening. So can you just give us really quickly the overview of where we are today? What are the big developments?
Well, the big developments, as you saw with Secretary of War, I guess he's calling himself now, Hegseth, is they're transitioning the munitions. So now the claim is that it's been so successful, this air war, they don't need to use what's known as standoff weapons. So think the Tomahawk cruise missile. And they're going to now shift, the Air Force and the Israeli Air Force are going to shift now to flying large sorties of warplanes into Iran and bombing targets with what are known as gravity bombs. And these are things like the Joint Directed Attack Munitions, JDAMs. They require you to be close to the target. So the risk factor to our pilots is now increasing exponentially. But I would just like to posit a theory, and it's just a theory. I actually think the real reason we are doing this shift is not because of realities or facts on the ground that are amenable to the U.S. and Israeli strategic position. I think we are being dictated to by the depletion of our stockpiles.
Yes.
And what I mean by that, I have some numbers for your audience. We all know the Tomahawk cruise missile going back to the Clinton era, where he would just pop those things off, as soon as the Lewinsky impeachment got underway. 4,000 Tomahawk land attack cruise missiles are believed to be in the arsenal. We have been draining those since 2022, 2023 in Ukraine at a disproportionate rate. In the last 4 days of this conflict, we have expended 400 of those systems, which means that's 100 per day with the operational and tempo not ceasing. In 2026, the budget request was only for 59 new missiles. We need several hundreds every year. The reason we're getting such low numbers, Tucker, is because our defense industrial base is broken, and we have no business starting a world war or a major regional war as we are in the process of doing. So I believe the real reason the U.S. and Israeli militaries are starting to get more daring and dangerous with their airstrikes is because they cannot afford to blow through the munitions that are already depleting. And it is in fact a race to depletion between us and Iran. And right now, I think the Iranians still have a very sizable, unused, increasingly sophisticated missile arsenal. Colonel Rob Manus is a friend of mine. He's a former Air Force colonel. He disagrees with me. He says, look, these missiles that are being popped off by Iran are basically a bunch of dead enders. It's going to fizzle out. And Hegseth made a sort of argument about that today, that there was a decrease. But I actually think that those dead enders, if that's what you want to call them, actually are probably still combat effective. And that is
very important to note here, because Reuters reported drone strikes damaging Amazon Web Services data centers in the UAE as well as in Bahrain, which caused all sorts of outages and really drew attention to how fragile the cloud is. So when we talk about the war of attrition, who will run out first? So most of our analysts believe that Iran is in it for the long haul. They've been stocking munitions for the past 20 years, while America has been giving out our munitions. So Iran, if you notice, they're not just attacking military bases, they're even attacking Amazon Web data centers. They're doing very strategic attacks. They've been preparing this for the past 20 years, while America has been distracted and deflected all over the globe. This is a wake-up call about the physical vulnerability of not only our military stockpiles munition, but also our cloud infrastructure, which AI runs off of. See, we have to think about this. This is like an 8-sided octagon. This is like a six-headed snake. This is ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen. And not that we should be fearful or weary, but we should be very aware because, again, the way that America is positioned is very hard to attack us with all the defense systems that we have. So that's not their goal. I don't believe that Iran will even try to attempt to shoot some sort of supersonic missile towards America. I don't believe that at all. Now, I want us to remember a couple of things here. The Vietnam War. You guys remember the Vietnam War? And I kind of looked into Gemini. I use all these different AI tools to do a lot of the research because it really just cuts my time in half. And I make sure that they verify their sources where they obtain the information from. But nevertheless, the one question that I had was, did America win the Vietnam War? Do not forget that the North Viet Cong won the war, and we were supporting the South Viet Cong. And the Vietnam War went on for 18 to 20 years. Roughly 60,000 U.S. military troops were killed. That means that 3,000 people, 3,000 military, red-blooded Americans fighting for our defense died once again in another country. So anyway, I asked Gemini, I said, who won the war, basically? It states here, while the U.S. Armed Forces largely accomplished their tactical missions and won the firefights, the little skirmishes, the little battles, the U.S. failed to achieve its grand strategic goal. The conflict demonstrated that winning battles does not always translate to winning a war if the underlying political problems still remain unsolved. That's because the Viet Cong is still in charge. I actually went to Vietnam last year. And if you guys want to check that out, I put that vacation video on my site. We only spent like 5 days there because it was really not much to do, but it was a good country. I didn't face any racism or discrimination, but our tour guide kept referring to Americans. Man, let's just say, from what he tells us, they love American money, but they don't really care too much about America. I'll just say that. But yeah, 60,000 soldiers died in another war. Because again, we're backing our partners in the region or for strategic value. There's a lot to take from this. And I'm not trying to make it more than what it is. What about this? The United States is geographically insulated from the immediate physical devastation of a Middle Eastern war, right? We're in a great position against a lot of countries for them to try to attack America. But its involvement will have profound global and domestic consequences. What's going on in America right now? Did you guys notice the gas prices today? In my area, the gas prices yesterday was $2.89. Today was $3.19. It goes on to state here, American military bases and naval assets across the Middle East will be prime targets for Iranian ballistic missiles and proxy attacks, risking significant disrupts to who and to what? The Strait of Hormuz. Global oil prices could skyrocket, with some commodities analysts projecting severe spikes, which we've already had, potentially triggering a global recession that would heavily impact the U.S. economy. And here's a part that people probably haven't got this report, that our military strategists told President Trump that this is not a good idea. And he did it anyway. Now, granted, I don't know the information or the intel that the president received that, hey, regardless if this is good or bad, we must do this for the safety of America. Do you think he said that? I'm just asking for a friend. And last but not least, it states here, I know it's kind of small, in a full-scale escalation, the concept of a winner is relative. The U.S. and Israel will likely win the conventional military engagements and degrade Iran's offensive capabilities, but this is how it affects the American people. The resulting economic shocks, infrastructure damage, and regional instability will inflict devastating costs on all three nations. On all three nations. Because I guess most people don't understand the strategic placement of Iran when they're referring to the Strait of Hormuz. They can disrupt any and all oil from the Middle East coming to any Western country by the way of the water, which a lot of it has been transported. I'm not spitting conjecture here, ladies and gentlemen. These are facts.
Former Vice Chairperson of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, retired Admiral Sandy Winfield, has warned that the United States could face a serious shortage of key missile defense systems if this conflict with Iran continues at its current pace. This warning highlighted what he called a growing race against time between U.S. missile defenses and Iran's large stockpile of Shahed drones and ballistic missiles. According to the U.S. Central Command, more than 500 missiles and 2,000 drones have reportedly been launched by Tehran since the fighting escalated. Winfield said that the real concern isn't the number of attacks, but the cost and the availability of the missiles that are used to stop them. Advanced interceptor systems such as the Patriot air defense missiles and Amiram interceptors are expensive and limited in supply. Iran's Shahed drones, which can cost around $20,000, are far cheaper than the missiles used to shoot them down, creating what analysts call an economic imbalance on the battlefield. Reports also suggest that the head of the U.S. military, General Dan Kane, privately warned President Donald Trump about possible shortages in interceptor stocks just before the strikes began. Those supplies have already been strained after defending Israel during last year's 12-day conflict with Iran and through the ongoing military support to Ukraine. Donald Trump has rejected these concerns. He insists that American munition stockpiles are strong, also adding that America has what he calls unlimited mid to upper tier weaponry.
Yeah, I don't know about that. So you have a general who warned President Trump about low emissions. And then the president contradicts a general, no less, who knows these numbers offhand. Do not forget he's the boots on the ground. And President Trump said, no, we're good. We got enough missiles. I want you guys to think about what I was talking about earlier, because Reuters actually has documented that big tech's huge AI, a lot of the data center investments in the Gulf, you know, with the likes of Microsoft, Amazon, AWS, Google, Oracle. I mean, all of these big tech companies. And that's because the Middle East, the Gulf states, has positioned itself as an AI hubs. So we're going to have a lot of our data centers there. So yes, if the Gulf becomes unstable, the AI future that investors are betting on starts looking like a lot less guaranteed. Now, some people who've lost their job behind this whole AI takeover to a certain degree, who probably in their mid 40s, 50s, and 60s, not really trying to learn any new skills, like, man, I got to go back to school. Unfortunately, in this economy, you got to reinvent yourself. You got to be an AI engineer now, unless you work with your hands. Now, if you're a plumber, electrician, construction worker, for them, you know, right now you're pretty safe. But we have to look at a couple of things. Gulf sovereign wealth funds are enormous because the amount of money they invested, we're talking about $5 trillion. And that's being disrupted right now. So the the capital that they invested as well matters in these global markets. Why am I stating all of this? Why am I giving you so much context? It's because it's going to affect Americans. We already see it with our gas prices. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Everything in America is tied to oil. Everything. Food tied to oil. Electricity tied to oil. Water tied to oil, because everything in America runs off of what? Oil, natural gas. Not too many things are self-sustaining where they're using solar panels, they're using geothermal energy, wind technology. Yeah, we have some apparatuses, we have some sites around America that uses wind technology and others, but the infrastructure of our country, even on the state and local levels, is still ran by oil. So as they stated, you're going to see some spikes, which we already have. And Reuters, they also reporting connects war that, again, that we see now disrupt exports through the Strait of Hormuz. Very important. This is the ugly reality of the 21st century warfare. We're talking about high-end interceptors are limited and expensive. They're spending, Iran only spending $20,000 per drone while we're spending $4 million per missile. And if we keep defending the world, we're going to eventually run out of everything. I was looking at ABC the other day, and they described the conflict as becoming a war of attrition. That's why this word is kind of being zinged around, where us and Israel are racing to destroy Iran's missile capability before their own interceptor stocks are depleted. And even if the U.S. says missile launches are down, that doesn't solve the core problem. The cost structure and production pipelines still matter. In the last clip, we just saw that the reason why we're stopped shooting missiles and we're now going to use jets to drop gravity bombs is a direct indicator that why would we put Air Force pilots or naval pilots wherever they're flying from? Because believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, the Navy has more fighter pilots than the Air Force. Okay, you kind of learn it when you're in the military. It's kind of a funny thing, but yeah, that's because we deploy a lot of our aircrafts, a lot of our jets from aircraft carriers. But I digress. But the point I'm making here is that we're now going to put fighter pilots in harm's way, because Iran has an air defense system as well. Now, we may have technology, we may have, I don't know, short bursts of EMP, we might have starbursts, so they destroy the starburst. We may have some sort of signal emitters that confuses. I don't know what we have, okay? I know some of the things we have, but the point of the matter is they're still going to be in harm's way, because if Iran shoots up enough missiles, one is sure to hit. So why would we go from shooting missiles from a safe enclave where no American is really being harmed versus putting jets in the sky to drop over particular sites, even though we have guided missiles that we can shoot remotely? Doesn't make any sense. It tells me that is a key point of evidence, of information, to let us know that we are possibly low on these ammunitions. I think that's very relevant to know. Now, to the part where I think a lot of people, some people touched on this, I've seen. Have you guys thought, what's the reason behind America and Israel partnering up together to destroy Iran? Is it the safety of America? Is it the safety of Iran? Or as I stated earlier, I kind of gave you guys a hint. Is this potentially a religious war? Do you know that religious wars never end? They never end. Remember, we used to always say, oh, there needs to be peace in the Middle East. People used to say it all the time because it was always at war. Let me give you some context regarding this. The third temple is a deeply significant yet hypothetical future structure intended to be built in Jerusalem, succeeding the destroyed first and second temples, while sacred in Judaism, particularly as a step, it was a step towards the Messianic age. It is also a central figure in Christian, I don't know how to pronounce that damn word, eschatology. Organizations like the Temple Institute are actively preparing for its construction, with faces massive geopolitical challenges. They're stating that this is all have to do with the third temple. It goes on to state it is the most sacred potential place of worship for Jews, aiming to reinstate ancient rites and sacrificial rituals. Hopefully you guys are reading what I'm reading. The location, the intended location is the Temple Mount in Jerusalem's old city, currently home to the Dome of the Rock. So this third temple supposed to be like Mecca to Muslims, right? But to the Jews, like Mecca, the most holiest place on earth. This is where the Messiah is going to rise again or come back. This is where Jesus is going to show up again. The Temple Institute has already created ritual garments, holy vessels, and architectural plans, and has trained descendants of the high priests. But it's located in Dome of the Rock. Dome of the Rock. What's that? It's an iconic 7th century Islamic shrine located on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem's old city. Do not forget, according to where the third temple is supposed to be, it's supposed to be on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem old city. All right, they go on to give you some, background information, and then it says it sits on a holy site for Muslims, Jews, and Christians, making the spot where Prophet Muhammad is believed to have ascended to heaven and where Abraham was prepared to sacrifice his son. So this is a very, very holy, special place. It houses a noble rock believed to be the spot from which Muhammad ascended, into heaven on his night journey, and is a major pilgrimage site, though not a mosque. The site is historically linked to the second temple and is considered by many to be the location where Abraham prepared to sacrifice Isaac. Do you guys know where this is located at? Let me show you. Let me show you where it's located at. Let's see. Of course, they will give me something like that. Let's see if I can back out. Yeah, I don't know. They're not trying to give me where it is. Give me 1 second, guys. Sorry, I didn't have this set up for you guys. Yeah, I'm not. Okay. So, yeah, I was trying to, so you can see it on the map. Or we can ask a better question. Where is... We can ask that question. The Dome of the Rock is located on the Temple Mount in the city of Odron, where the site has been under Israeli control since 1967. So why are they doing this? Because every reason they're giving, I'm trying to really understand what is the purpose behind these wars other than reports that they possibly may attack Israel. And even if the U.S. says missile launchers are down, just to go back on another point, that doesn't solve the core problem. The cost structure and production pipelines still matter. The Iran conflict could divert air defense's resources from who? Ukraine, because don't forget, right now, America, we are between two wars. The war in Ukraine is still going on, ladies and gentlemen. I know you don't see anything regarding it, but it's still going on. We've never should have been involved in Ukraine and Iran, because now they don't care. They don't care about the American people when it comes to war. America should have never have gotten addicted to being the world's emergency contact, because now we're in a position where we're defending everyone, we're funding everyone, we're shipping the arsenal to multiple theaters, and we're shocked when someone calls out bluff with cheap drones and long-range missiles. Money can run out. This is diabolical leadership, in my opinion, because the people who pay are not the politicians. It never is. Some people are like, hey, that's just money on the map. If you look at the upper left corner, ladies and gentlemen, that's the U.S. national debt going on $39 trillion. The people who pay are not the politicians. The politicians are getting paid by your tax dollars. The people who pay are the taxpayers, are the service members who will die and be harmed and hurt. The worker watching prices spike, people on low and minimum wage, and people in the middle class, especially the middle class, which is the bedrock of America, which holds up the American economy. And the public getting told, don't worry, our stockpiles are strong. But as we're changing strategy, we have military active duty. We have military analysts saying, though, no, the stockpiles are low. This is not transparency. This is stage acting. I want you guys to look at the fuel prices really quickly. So this is today's average around America. Of course, California, good luck, guys. You guys almost paying $5 a gallon. So we look up in Washington State, they're paying roughly $4.50. Oregon, $4. California, we might as well say $5 per gallon. Nevada, $4 per gallon. Arizona, around $3.70. And this is regular gas, by the way. This is regular gas. So if your car requires premium, wow. Alaska's around $3.88. Hawaii, $4.50. Florida, $3.50. Oh, $3.30 rather. Again, I told you in my local area in Texas, because this is the average for Texas, it was $3.19. And that was around 3 or 4 gas stations that I looked at in my area. Okay, let's look at some low places. New Mexico, roughly $3, $3.10. Utah, $3. Nebraska, $3. But this is already affecting the American economy. That's what I'm referring to. Idaho, $3.20. Michigan, about same $3.20. And then I kind of went back because I wanted to take a look at this very quickly. If you guys look at the gas prices, how they changed exponentially. A month ago, the average prices for Texas was $2.50. Now we're at $3.19. And don't get me wrong, I know gas prices fluctuate, but not spiking like this. But this is definitely related to the war. It's definitely relating to the war. I want you guys to listen in.
Defenses, but a few missiles did find their target. They hit multiple locations in central Israel. Reports say 9 people have been injured. And what about the other side? Well, Israel has opened a second front against Lebanon. Their fighter jets are bombing targets deep in Beirut. As of now, 40 people have been killed and 246 have been wounded in Lebanon. And it's not just an aerial onslaught. Israel has ordered a ground invasion as well. They plan to create a buffer zone in southern Lebanon. Meanwhile, the Hezbollah is trying to fight back. They're firing rockets at northern Israel, leading to mid-air interceptions by the Iron Dome.
This is not Call of Duty, ladies and gentlemen. This is not Call of Duty. This is real. This is real life. This is what's going on currently. And the U.S. is highly involved. They're going, Israel sending ground troops into Lebanon. So 3 predictions. The U.S. will lose. That's what people are predicting. And we don't mean lose by tanks on the ground in America and being occupied by Iranian forces. No, we mean economically lose. The war of attrition. Because some people will argue, what does lose look like? Well, losing looks like $20,000 for a drone versus $4 million for a missile to stop a $20,000 drone. Because what Iran is doing, not only with the war of attrition with America, but it's also targeting the global economy, especially the Middle Eastern states, especially the Gulf infrastructure. They're targeting ports. They're targeting underground cables and refinery silhouettes. They're targeting all these things. They're targeting AI centers. They have already hit Amazon's AWS data centers in the UAE as well as in Bahrain. They are attacking the infrastructure. The one thing that the Iranians know is that, no, we're going to lose the war. We're going to lose the war, but we are all going to be hurting. That's the point here. That's what they're getting at. So do I believe that the U.S. can lose this war? Well, I do know that the U.S. can win battles, but wars of attrition are won by production, endurance, political cohesion, economic resilience. But from what I see in this administration, unfortunately, you have generals telling you the state of our stockpiles and munitions. You have generals telling you we're defending and supporting 2 wars, one in Europe, one in the Middle East, and we didn't start any of them. But people will go out and protest. We should be in these wars. We should be helping these people. What happens when America becomes so damn weak? Some of the people that we are neutral with, like a Russia, like a Turkey, like a China, like a North Korea, decide America is very vulnerable right now. I'm not saying they will attack, but again, we've always been tight cyberly, right? Every year, not just during election cycles, but even throughout the year, we get constant attacks from people from the East trying to hack. Ladies and gentlemen, I just got hacked, 2 or 3 weeks ago. This channel was down. They totally took over my channel. They closed all of my accounts. They even resetted my phone. And if you guys go back, you will see a dip in video productions because I think I was off air for about a week, a solid week or so. And I was fighting with, I won't say fighting with Google, but petitioning Google to tell them that my channel was hacked. Because what they did was, after they took control of my channel, they started playing some Bitcoin stuff. And I was trying to stop it real time. I saw the hack happen. I could do nothing about it. Then simultaneously, my wife was on the left side of me. We're sitting here, and then my phone flicked or flashed, and then it started to restart. I said, "Did you see that?" She was like, "Yeah." Then when my phone booted back up, it was factory reset. And the reason why they factory reset my phone is because when you use some sort of two-factor authentication, most people, you get a code on your phone to put that code back into the website to verify who you are. They made sure I couldn't do that. So I had to set back up my phone. Let's just say it was a lot. And when they traced back the hack, it was from Russia. And the same hacker tried to hack me twice. And everybody was telling me, you must be doing something right or something really right that they're coming after you. And I don't know. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't know. Maybe there's someone who thought I had a couple of dollars they could take, or they just was having fun with me. I don't know. I just know right now that the public record is full of warning signs and pertains to this. If you look at, we had these interceptor missiles, these Patriot interceptor missiles. That's a strain. Emergency production push, Patriots being shuffled like chess pieces. And then the critical infrastructure. Our infrastructure may take a hit in places that we were sold as stable investment zones, stable infrastructure. That's the one thing. You go to all these other countries, you can't drink their water. Ladies and gentlemen, anyone can come to America, with the exception of Flint, Michigan. You know, they still dealing with a water crisis, believe it or not. But you can drink the water in a lot of these American cities and states. Now, it's not the best water, but you go to other countries and you drink their water, you get sick. You get dysentery. You have diarrhea. You vomiting. Believe me, I know. I accidentally drunk the water. Well, I didn't drink the water in Dominican Republic, but what happened is they made this drink that was water-based. And me not thinking it was a different color, I'm not thinking, oh, it's water. But I drank it, and believe me, I was down for about 2 days. And within 2 days, the amount of bowel movements is ungodly. Let's just say that. I lost about 8 pounds, and I'm not even exaggerating. Yeah, it made me sick. So we have to think about that in those regards. And I know a lot of Americans, we don't even drink our tap water. But believe me when I tell you, if you drunk your tap water, would you get sick? More times than not. We don't have all the bacteria in our water. Now, granted, we may have some heavy metals in our water that may affect you 20 years later. But a lot of these other countries, when you drink their water, it's almost 30 minutes later to an hour later that you will get sick. So a lot of you guys know what I'm referring to, because if that ever happened to you, then Lord. Now I'm looking at some of your comments over here. If you got any comments, please let me know. Let's see. I want to ask you about yesterday at Afro Elite. So we're doing a broadcast about what's currently going on there, talking about another broadcast, but I'll entertain it. Says, I understand that we could use any help. It's just legacy is not foundational. Why she have a problem using foundational? Oh, okay. He's talking about an interview yesterday on Afro Elite channel with Dr. Pamela Denise Long. I've also interviewed her, very intelligent sister running for the Senate seat in Illinois. That's just what she uses. I have no defense against that. She said legacy, a legacy Black American, encompasses foundational ADOS, people who are descendants of slaves in America, plain and simple. But anyway, nevertheless, guys, I thank you for joining me here this morning. And we're definitely going to keep our eye. We definitely need to keep our eye what's going on, because this is going to affect us. And none of us are going to know, like, what's going on right now? Like, why is this happening?
This is the secondary front. For Israel, Iran remains the primary target. Their fighter jets continue to bomb locations in the West and in Tehran. Today, they hit government buildings in the capital, including the presidential office and the Assembly of Experts. These are sites attacked in Iran. Now, this Assembly of Experts, this assembly building, is where the next supreme leader is supposed to be selected. But Israel has blown it up.
مرزدارانی وای وای دوباره زد